Hi there. Those of you who watch Stress Talk live regularly know that Stress Talk airs Sunday evenings, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But last night we had a little issue. During the broadcast, everything went kind of haywire, lost connection for some reason. As a result, we were not able to finish sharing the information we had for you. Because of that, I decided to record a new um, presentation, presentation, so that you can get the benefits. Okay, so this is a recording of the live stream. No, let me take that back. This is a recording of what you would have received yesterday during the live stream. And we're going to get to it in just one moment. Hi there, and welcome to a recorded version of Stress Talk. This is the place where we help women over 40 to live healthier lives through strategic stress management and solution focused self care. I'm Marcelyn Bailey, your host. Today, we're going to be talking about how anxiousness hijacks your brain and leads to sleepless nights. This is going to be a complete recording. What is currently on our YouTube channel is 15 minutes of the presentation because we had a little issue last night. So I hope you will come back to the new recording and hear the information. Okay, so let's get started without any delay. We're talking about um, let me fix this so I can see my notes, okay? Yeah, I guess I wasn't prepared as prepared as I should have been. All right, here we go. Here we go. Okay, so I wanted to introduce to you the reason we wake up late at night with our mind going. Why does our mind continue to turn? It's like we ruminate on thoughts and we can't go back to sleep. And this happens to people who are under stress, who are experiencing anxiety, who have a lot on their mind and a lot going on in their lives. It also happens to women who are premenopausal as well as menopausal. And so I wanted to give you a little bit of the biology behind it, the science behind it, and then I'm going to share with you an emergency toolkit so that you will be able to go back to sleep. If you wake up late at night, you'll be able to go back to sleep easily so you'll feel rested in the morning. So let's get started. First, I want to talk about the biology. So that we why is it that we can't go back to sleep because our mind is going when we wake up late at night? Well, first of all, let me talk about the prefrontal cortex. Remember, I've told you about the prefrontal cortex that is right behind your forehead. This is the part of our brain that's kind of known as the voice of reason. This part of the brain actually helps the amygdala know when we are not in danger, right? This is the thinking part of our brain. What generally happens is that when we are in having a stress response, when we are seeing something, experiencing something that the amygdala um, interprets as danger, The prefrontal cortex, it takes a minute, but the prefrontal cortex can assess the situation and say, yeah, no, we're okay. We are safe. You don't have to, you can shut the stress response down. You don't have to keep going. We're good. At night, however, when we start to wind down and we begin to um, get sleepy, um, we get sleepy, the prefrontal cortex winds down as well. However, when we are feeling anxious, experiencing anxiety, when we have a lot on our minds, when we are nervous, anxious, upset about something, the prefrontal cortex gets hijacked. And it gets hijacked by the amygdala. And because of that, it becomes impaired, essentially. It's not able to think ahead and it's not able to manage the emotional responses. And so late at night, when we've quieted down, we're sleeping, and that the prefrontal cortex is quiet, the amygdala may get some signal and it'll start sending cortisol like crazy, initiating the stress response. And because the prefrontal cortex has been hijacked and it's not able to respond the way it would normally respond, we get flooded with cortisol, and that keeps the stress response going. So keep in mind that the prefrontal cortex, that usually is the voice of reason, is not necessarily functioning when we, as to its maximum, to the best of its ability, when we are when we are anxious or when we have a lot going on in our lives. We've talked about the amygdala too. The amygdala is very hypervigilant. It's like it's in the control tower and it's surveying the territory. It's going by our senses, what we see, what we hear, what we feel, what we smell, as well as what we think. And it's scanning for threats. It's constantly scanning for threats. And when it comes upon something that is threat-like, it triggers the stress response. It triggers that fight or flight response. As I said, the prefrontal cortex keeps it in check, but at night it doesn't, because it has wound down. And because if we're anxious, the amygdala is sending cortisol that keeps it from functioning the way it would normally function. One of the causes of this is when we have a poor night of sleep, when we don't sleep well, the amygdala becomes more reactive to negative things. That's one of the reasons it's important for us to get a good night's sleep, because if we don't sleep well, the amygdala becomes overactive and it becomes more reactive to things that are negative. So that's part of what's going on biologically. Another part that I want to share with you is our default mode network. Now, the default mode network is various parts of the brain. It's comprised of various parts of the brain, and what it does is it helps us to daydream, right? It causes us to think about ourselves, and it helps us to recall memories. This is like the imagination center, but it's not just one part of the brain, it's different parts of the brain that makes up the default mode network. With the default mode network, it it starts to rev up. It starts to get going when we are not engaged in out external tasks, when we're not doing things, when we're just sitting around, right? Our mind starts to imagine things. Our mind starts to think about things. Our mind is not engaged in what's going on. I talked about um, how you can drive the same route and you may not notice a change along the route for several days or weeks because you're in default mode, that default mode where you're not actually scanning the area or actively engaged in the drive. You know, you're driving, yeah, but you're not engaged in what's going on totally around you. The other thing about the default mode network is that it can get into a rumination um, loop where you're replaying negative thoughts repeatedly without moving towards a solution. Remember, the front part of your brain is where you solve things, it's where you think, it's where you reason. This default mode network, however, can get into this loop and it's not solving anything. It's like you're on a hamster wheel. And that's what rumination is, where we start looping negative thoughts and we can't get out of it and we don't have a solution for it. We're just thinking negatively constantly. That's really what causes anxiety, getting into that negative loop without a solution. So the amygdala will send a what if, that's what the amygdala does, what if, that leads the default mode network into um, a series of um, dread, where it's thinking negatively. And as we think negatively, the amygdala thinks we are under attack, that we are under threat, and it starts releasing stress hormones. And the more stress hormones it releases, the wider awake we become. And this is what happens at night, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, when we can't sleep and we have those ruminating thoughts. That default mode network is starting to spin. It can't figure out a solution, but it's thinking all these negative thoughts, and it is causing the amygdala to send increased amounts of cortisol into our system. And because of that, we begin to feel more anxious and we become wide awake. The result is we can't sleep. So here we are, 2 o'clock in the morning, twiddling our thumbs, worrying about why we can't sleep, wanting to sleep. Sleeplessness is actually a threat. It is viewed as a threat. When we're not able to sleep, it is viewed as a threat. When we sleep poorly, it increases anxiety, and anxiety in turn destroys or prevents restful sleep. So it is a loop that we don't want to get into, because if we get into this loop, we're not going to feel rested and we're not going to feel, safe. And that continues. If we don't feel safe, the amygdala continues to initiate the stress response. So, um, it's really a lot to think about. But again, it's biological. It is biological. Um, and, you know, it's predictable too that um, when we begin the emotional part of our brain, the amygdala goes into overdrive And when we continue to tell ourselves negative things and we get into this negative feedback loop, it's predictable. We're not going to be able to sleep, or we're going to have sleep that's disrupted and not restful. Okay. So I'm talking about the biology around sleeplessness. And I want to say to you that if this is resonating with you, hit the like button. Just give me a thumbs up, hit the like button. Also, if you have not subscribed, subscribe to Stress Talk Live with Marceline. We talk about how we can arrest the stress that we are experiencing, as well as how the underlying causes of stress that we don't always talk about. So hit the like button if you hear something you like, subscribe, share it, and don't forget to download your 7-day stress reset guide. Okay. All right. So let's talk about how we can um, how we can break the cycle. Okay. First of all, in order to break the cycle, we have to basically regain control. That amygdala is churning out cortisol, just throwing that cortisol out. And it's making us more anxious because we feel that our brain is just going on and on and on. It's ruminating on negative thoughts. Excuse me. So, what we want to do is create conditions where sleep can naturally happen. Okay. We want to create conditions where sleep can naturally happen. And I know you're out there saying, yeah, but it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I can't go back to sleep. I'm going to share with you this emergency toolkit that you can use to help you to fall asleep. And then in the next episode, I'm going to share some strategies that you can engage in that over time will help you to fall asleep. But create the conditions where sleep can happen naturally. The other thing that you want to do is to stop trying to force yourself to go to sleep and stop ruminating on why you can't go to sleep. If you're ruminating on why you can't go to sleep, the amygdala is saying we're under threat, we're under threat, we're under threat, because when we can't sleep, that's a threat, right? Also, when you're trying to force yourself to go back to sleep and it doesn't work, that creates anxiety. So we want to stop trying to force ourselves to go back to sleep, and we want to stop telling ourselves we can't go to sleep. The third thing that helps to break the cycle is to use science-backed tools. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you in just a few moments. Science-backed tools. I have clients who talk about taking melatonin, and I think if that works for them, it works for them. I like non drug strategies. That's what I share. Strategies that you can do without having to purchase anything, take anything, uh, natural things that are natural. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you right now. Excuse me. I don't know. I have a frog in my throat and it's trying to croak. All right. So let's talk about some of these emergency. These are science-backed emergency tools that you can use. Okay. You've heard me say this before, that breathing is the best number one way to initiate the relaxation response. Breathing initiates the relaxation response. When we take in a deep breath and when we sigh it out, the exhale or the sigh tells the amygdala that we're safe. Taking a deep breath right now and just sigh. Notice how that feels. It loosens your shoulders. It also causes you to relax. So, one of the tools that's in your emergency toolkit today that I'm sharing with you is 478 breathing. It's a breathing technique that's very powerful and it deactivates the stress response. It also will initiate the relaxation response. Remember, the sympathetic nervous system is what starts the stress response. The parasympathetic nervous system is what initiates the relaxation response. So, with the 478 breathing technique, you're going to do, you're going to breathe in for 4 on a count of 4. Breathe in for count of 4. You will then hold your breath for a count of 7. And then you will exhale out of your mouth with a sigh on a count of 8. So I'm going to demonstrate it, and you're welcome to do it along with me. Okay. So I'm breathing in. I'm holding it. And I'm exhaling. That's it. Do that 4 times. Do that 4 times in a row. Breathe in on a 4 count. Hold it for a count of 7. And then exhale out of your mouth with a sigh on a count of 8. So, how does that work and why does it work? When we exhale, when we have a long exhale, it actually stimulates the vagus nerve. And this essentially activates the parasympathetic nervous system. Some people call it the rest and digest nervous system, the rest and digest system. But that long exhale is what stimulates that parasympathetic nervous system. Also, with the 478 breathing technique, it slows your heart rate, it lowers your blood pressure, and it sends a safety signal to your amygdala. That long exhale tells the amygdala, hey, we're safe, we're okay. So 478 breathing, you want to try that. And again, repeat that 4 times. Another technique that you can use, and this is emergency toolkit technique, is called the articulatory suppression. Articulatory suppression is a technique that's used in cognitive behavioral therapy. And basically, when you have ruminating thoughts, these are thoughts that are continuous and you can't seem to turn them off. This technique is that you just repeat a single neutral word to yourself. And the word that's often used is the, T-H-E, the. When you repeat this word to yourself, it basically jams that rumination from your brain. Like it sends a jamming signal. You can't ruminate or think of other things if you're thinking the word the. It's benign, it's harmless, but it helps to stop the rumination. It jams it. Okay. We've talked about 478 breathing. We've talked about articulatory suppression. There's a 20-minute rule. So if you're not able to sleep, instead of staying in bed, tossing and turning, thinking, I can't sleep, after 20 minutes or so, get out of bed. Just get up. Get up. Because you don't want to associate your bed with sleep. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. You don't want to associate your bed with stress, because the longer you stay in bed thinking, I can't sleep, the more stressed you're going to become, right? So after 20 minutes or so, if you're not able to sleep, get up. One thing that you can do is go to another room that's dimly lit. Don't go turning on lights. Don't go to the computer. Don't pick up your phone. I know you do that. I know you do that. I've done it myself. That's how I know that you do it. But go to a room that's dimly lit and do a brain dump. A brain dump is where you just write down everything that you're worrying about. Write down all the things that you're ruminating about. Write down all the things that concern you. Write down all the things that you're thinking about that you have to do tomorrow. Do a brain dump. You don't have to edit it. You don't have to correct the spelling. You don't have to make sure punctuation or grammar is correct. You just dump. You just do a dump. Write it all down. Once you've written it all down, put a step next to it that you can use to take care of it. Very simple. Just write down a very quick step that you're going to use to take care of it. That's your plan. You have a plan. Give yourself permission to let it go. And then once you've let it go and you start to get sleepy, then go back to bed. Go lay down. Or if you don't want to lie down, get to a comfortable chair and close your eyes and go to sleep. I've heard people say that when they go back to bed, they wake up again, right? So if you feel as if you're going to wake up again when you lie down, just sleep in the easy chair as long as you're getting restful sleep. So that's the 20-minute rule. The last emergency tool that I'm going to share with you today is take a mental vacation. Just daydream. Fill your mind with all of anything that's rich and pleasant and sensory, all those sensory experiences. Right now, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about being in Jamaica when I was in St. Thomas and the beautiful sunset, thinking about the water. It was just so clear and pretty. And I'm thinking about all those wonderful things. Take yourself out of that rumination mode and think about something that is very pleasing, that is very pleasant to you, and fill it with those sensory experiences. Like I can remember being by the water in St. Thomas and just smelling it, smelling the freshness, smelling the crispness, it smelled a little fishy, right? But it was fresh and I enjoyed it. I loved it. Looking at the sun and how the sun hit the water and the waves, right? I could see that. I could smell it. I could still, that sensory input that I had then, I can recall it. That's what I'm suggesting. Imagine something, a peaceful scene, but use all of your senses. What does it sound like in this scene that you're building in your brain? What does it look like in detail? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? A very detailed scene. So I've shared with you 478 breathing, articulatory suppression, 20-minute rule, and mental vacation as emergency tools that you can use when you find yourself waking up. I want you to know that you do have the power to intervene when you can't sleep. I've just given you four tools, four quick tools that you can use and that work. I know they work because I've used them and I know other people have used them. I have clients who have used them as well. Try them, quiet the noise that's in your brain so that you can get a restful, restorative sleep. Again, if you like what you've heard, hit the like button, give me that thumbs up. Also, share this with someone that you know who you think or you believe will need it as well. Also, I want to ask you to subscribe. The QR code is right here on the screen. So, subscribe to Stress Talk, ML Bailey Consultants on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And download, when you get to YouTube, download your free 7-day stress reset guide. Well, that's all for now. Thank you for your patience. I look forward to seeing you next time. I'm Marcelin Bailey. Take good care.